Hey fans, this is Corey here with Roy.
Hey guys, and this is our fourth part of our March Madness extravaganza.
And this time we will be looking at the West region, which is likely the easiest region in this year's tournament. I'll just give you the overview of the region. We have Arizona as the 1 seed against Damian Lillard's Weber State. 8-9 matchup between Gonzaga and Oklahoma State. 5 Oklahoma playing North Dakota State. San Diego State as the 4, playing New Mexico State as the 13 seed.
And then in the bottom half of the bracket, you have Baylor versus Nebraska, Baylor being the 6 and Nebraska being the 11. Third seed Creighton with fan favorite Doug McDermott versus 14
LA Lafayette.
7 Oregon against 10 BYU, and rounding it out 2 Wisconsin against 15 American.
So there's the West region for you. We'll begin just as we have with all the other podcasts, giving an overview of this bracket,
and then giving you guys our picks.
So we'll start up with the teams we think are most likely to win the bracket, and we have Arizona as the team most likely, and then we think if it's not Arizona, this bracket is wide open.
Yeah, I think Arizona obviously has been one of the best teams throughout the season, yes. And, I mean, just a stellar team all around. Aaron Gordon, one of the weirdest players that I've ever seen play, but just so effective and always finds a way to get the ball in the basket. Nick Johnson, one of the premier shooters and scorers of the tournament. But Arizona did have a little injury. So I'm
with Brandon Ashley,
Brandon Ashley, their center. So it'll be interesting to see how that's going to affect them, and it's going to be interesting to see if a team like Wisconsin or Creighton or even San Diego State could pull off,
or Oklahoma State,
for that matter.
So as Roy said, that Brandon Ashley injury was really important in the middle of the season because he was a guy who could stretch the floor for them. Mm-hmm. But I still think that they just have enough size with guys like Tarczewski and Gordon, who reminds me so much of Blake Griffin. Mm-hmm. The Blake Griffin before Griffin began to develop his jump shot and everything, because he's been great this season.
Raw talent.
Yeah, but he's just so athletic. I think just based on that talent alone and on the size and the guard play that they have with Johnson and McCollum, I just think that Arizona is the favorite in this region.
Yeah, I definitely think they're the favorite. But like we said, if they go down, and they could without the presence of Ashley, who's been so important for them with his mid-range shot and then down low for the rebounding game. But I think this region is just so open with teams like Wisconsin and Creighton.
So, Arizona's our favorite to win the region. They're the team that's most likely going to be picked by most people, and we will see what happens there. So now we go on to double-digit seeds. We think that are likely to pull the upset.
Our first is North Dakota State, which is
out of the Summit League.
Which is an extremely efficient scoring team, but they play a slower offensive style, and their best player is Taylor Braun, who's actually one of the most underrated players in the whole tournament, averaging 18 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. The guy's an all-around great player. And he's actually 44% from 3, so he's one of the best players and the most underrated players in the tournament, and you got to watch out for him.
Yeah, I mean, any name with Braun nowadays is kind of looked at a little poorly because of Ryan Braun, but Taylor Braun's a really good player. And the interesting thing about North Dakota State is that a lot of times from these upsets, we see a team that hits a lot of threes. Mm-hmm. And North Dakota State's not great from 3, but they're a really methodical offense. Mm-hmm. Best in the nation with a 51% field goal percentage, which is the best since 2 years ago, since Creighton and Missouri were really good from the field. Yeah. So they're really efficient. That could cause Oklahoma some problems.
And that's going to be a great game, a high-scoring game. If you want to see good shooting and a clash of styles, Oklahoma more of a run-and-gun team, and North Dakota State more of a methodical, slow-moving, but very efficient team. That's going to be a great game.
So that's one of the teams we see as a possible upset bid, the 12-seed North Dakota State, beating Oklahoma if you're looking for an upset in your bracket. The other upset that we think is possible for a double-digit seed to scare some people is one game below them, New Mexico State against San Diego State. New Mexico State's the 13th seed. They're actually in the tournament for the 3rd straight time as a 13th seed. I don't know if that's a record, possibly. But
hey, the committee's staying consistent.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Staying consistent at being terrible. But how's Louisville 4 seed? I still can't get over that. It's 3 podcasts later. Who knows? So New Mexico State, they had the big 7'5" Sin Bular.
Crazy. He's very weird to watch because he's just so big.
He's so slow.
He moves so slow, and that can be great for them, but it also hurts them because he doesn't get back a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point because when they played St. Louis last year, they only scored around 40 points, and the big part of the game was when Bular was tired and they left him in there, and they were essentially playing 5-on-4 in the fast break because he just can't get up and down the court. He's just too big. But he is massive.
Yeah. So, but when he gets back on defense, I mean, you can't really shoot over him. He's just that big of a monster down low. And on offense, he always just causes fouls. I mean, the amount of fouls against him is just ridiculous because you can't guard him.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 3.4 blocks per game, which was the 5th in the nation. He had a game where he had 10 blocks, so obviously he's a really good rim protector. At 7'5", you can just stand there and block anything. Even Dwight Howard can play good defensively there. But Sim Bular is just a beast. I think that New Mexico State can cause some problems because even aside from him, they had the WAC Player of the Year. So New Mexico State, another team that could cause an upset in the West region.
And now let's look at our players to watch in the.
Oh wait, real quick.
Oh,
Roy forgot one thing: the high seed to lose.
Oh, just quick. Wisconsin. Wisconsin's just a very okay team to me. They're very average, both on offense, defense. Nothing really surprising. They're an all-around good team. They don't have one great scorer, so I could see them going out to a quick attacking team like Oregon or BYU, who has one of the best scorers in the whole tournament, and Tyler Hawes. But I could also see them going out to Doug McDermott and Creighton. So look for Wisconsin to go down in one of the earlier rounds if there is to be an upset.
Yeah. So I agree. I actually have Wisconsin going pretty far. Not going to tell you how far yet. We'll get to that in a few short minutes. But I think that Roy brings up some good points because offensively, Wisconsin doesn't have that dynamic presence that they normally have of some of like the other top teams in the tournament. Mm-hmm. They're 92nd in points per game at just 72. So they really play that grinded out style. Yeah. And that could cause some troubles because if you look at the teams around them, Oregon, BYU, Creighton, all of them
marquee scores.
Exactly, marquee scores, and they love to put up points, and they can score a lot. Really good offensive efficiency. Yeah. Wisconsin's more of that motion offense, grind it down style, which could cause some problems if they get into a high-scoring game.
So let's go on now to the players.
There we go, Roy.
In the rest of the region. And let's start off with a person we talked about at first, Nick Johnson. Nick Johnson is Arizona's main shooter, and he's really the only premier scorer when you look at jump shooting. And Arizona really fluctuates off his game. I mean, they struggle when he's not shooting a lot, so Nick Johnson, but yet they've done so well because Nick Johnson has done well over the season. I mean, he's averaging about 18 points a game or so. He's just a great scorer, and he's really that presence that Arizona need to take themselves to be that top team that they are right now.
And he's also a really good defender, which is important as we get to our second player to watch, which is Marcus Smart, because Johnson could be matched up with Smart. Smart's played really well throughout the season, top 5 projected pick. He's so strong at like 6'4", such a big guard, so when he gets into that lane, it's almost impossible to stop him. Yeah. I think when he's not settling for jumpers, because he hasn't shot great from 3, I think around like 32%. If he's attacking into the lane,
he's a slasher.
Yeah, he's much better because he's so big and strong that it's so difficult to deal with him when he gets into the lane. Marcus Smart, another player to watch. And then the third guy is pretty obvious here, Doug McDermott.
I don't think we really have to say anything about him. 27 points a game. You literally go over his game log, and there's not crazy. One game where he's like scoring below 20. Just an absolute phenomenon. Definitely going to be a top pick in the draft this upcoming year. And I don't really think we have to say anything about him that you guys don't already know. A great shooter, great mid-range game, just an all-around great player.
Yeah, he got up to 5th this season in college basketball's all-time scoring list, only behind Pete Maravich, Freeman Williams from Portland State, Simmons from LaSalle, Alfonso Ford from Mississippi Valley State. So those are the 4 guys who are ahead of him. Really impressive there from Doug McDermott.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of speed through the first round a little because there aren't that many great games in this region. It's the
weakest region, yeah.
Yeah. But don't worry, we'll give more analysis as the rounds go on. So Arizona, Weber State, Arizona.
Yeah, not really much question there unless Damian Lillard, unless he comes back.
Damian Lillard comes back and just
scores 20-something points a game, which the Trailblazers could use because they've been struggling a little bit. But we both like Arizona to march on past Weber State.
Yeah, then I say Oklahoma and the 8-9.
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State versus Gonzaga. I just have Oklahoma State. Too much scoring from Oklahoma State. I think Pangos is going to have a really big game if Gonzaga has any chance. But I just think with the backcourt of Smart and Brown, it's just too much for Gonzaga to handle.
So Roy has Arizona playing Oklahoma State in the second round. I also have Arizona taking on Oklahoma State in the second round. I think Gonzaga's a good team this season. They have some scoring. They're 5th in the nation in field goal percentage.
A classic Mark Few team, very efficient on the offense.
Yeah, Sam Dower can step out, a good lefty. He's got a really nice elbow jumper. Pangos has been around for 3 years or so now. He can really shoot the 3-ball. They have little Stockton, who's not as good as his dad, but his dad's also one of the best players the NBA has ever seen. But he's a real good point guard distributor. I think that as long as Oklahoma State can keep Gonzaga's big 7'1" Karnowski down, he hasn't scored more than 20 points all season, but he is such a big guy, and Oklahoma State doesn't have a lot of real big men inside. If they can just hold him down, keep him to 10 points, I think they shouldn't have too much trouble with Gonzaga. Probably just too much athleticism from Oklahoma State, Markel Brown, Marcus Smart. They should be fine in that game.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to the 5-12 matchup, Oklahoma, North Dakota State. And I actually have the upset in this pick. I have North Dakota State actually beating Oklahoma. And this is going to be one of the greatest games of the tournament, one of the most underrated because it's such a class of styles. You have North Dakota State, extremely efficient, but they play a slower offense like we said before, and Oklahoma loves to run and gun. They're 7th in points per game. They will go up and down the floor, and that's all due to the work of Cameron Clark, who's a great mid-range game, and Buddy Hield, who's one of the better three-point shooters in the tournament. But Oklahoma's also 308th in points allowed, so not a great defense from Oklahoma. And I think North Dakota State's so methodical in their offense, and I just think Taylor Braun will be able to have a big game against Oklahoma. And I have North Dakota State in the upset.
All right, so Rory has the 12 over the 5. I have Oklahoma winning that game. I just think that Oklahoma's played really well this season against everybody who they're supposed to beat. If you look at their losses, 5 of their 9 losses have come to teams within the RPI top 30. Mm-hmm. So I think they play really well against teams that are not as good as them. As Rory said, they shoot really well from 3. They're 7th in the nation in scoring. I know they let up a lot of points. I'm just not sure if North Dakota State can run up and down like Oklahoma can. I just think that Oklahoma's going to have a little too much. Kruger from UNLV, he'll validate his move over to Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma winning that game and going on to the second round. Okay. Next matchup, we have the 4-13 game between San Diego State and Sinbular, New Mexico State.
So I have San Diego State advancing. San Diego State is they were actually projected pretty low in the original
4th in the Mountain West preseason.
So
they lost Chase Tapley and Jamal Franklin in the Raiders' defense.
Okay, but still they're a very strong defensive club. And it kind of gets overlooked in their team defense because obviously Xavier Thames is one of the better players. The Mountain West Player of the Year. I know, Corey.
Exactly.
And
he's finally getting it right.
And Xavier Thames is one of the better players, but they play great team defense, 2nd in points allowed in a very strong conference, the Mountain West, and 23rd in steals per game. They're a very scrappy team. So they have good overall defense, and Xavier Thames just shows up to big games. But I'll talk about San Diego State a little later. But I have San Diego State advancing with really no problem.
Yeah, I likewise have San Diego State moving on to the next round to play Oklahoma. I really like Xavier Thames. Offensively, he provides the spark for them, around 17 points per game, and he can shoot the 3-ball 39%. And San Diego State is just so good defensively. I like Steve Fisher to bring some of his Fab 5 magic and Kawhi Leonard magic, who, if he just made one free throw, the Spurs would have won the title. I like San Diego State to move on and play Oklahoma.
And then in the next game, the 6-11, I believe, I actually have the upset. Nebraska, this is Nebraska-Baylor, my fault. I have Nebraska, the 11th seed, upseeding Baylor, the 6th seed. Nebraska, at first they look like a very average team, but they're actually very good. They struggle a little on the offensive end, but they have 2 amazing scorers, Shields and Petaway. And as of late, they've been playing well. But Petaway and Shields needs to keep up their production, and their big win against Wisconsin, which kind of brought them into the committee's eyes. They Petaway and Shields had 26, but for them it's about that third score. Shields and Petaway are always putting up about 20 to 15 a game, but they've struggled with that third score. Like when they lost to Creighton, Shields and Petaway had 20 points, but their next best player had 6. Next best score. But in the win against Wisconsin, Pitchford had 15. So they need that third score, and I don't think Baylor's that great of a team. Kenny Sherry needs to shoot well for them to win.
And Brady Haslip.
And Baylor's a good team rebounding, but I just think Nebraska has that edge over them.
Yeah, I actually was back and forth on this pick. Rory was getting upset because I was taking his upset pick, but I likewise have Nebraska beating Baylor. Thank you, Rory, for helping me.
You're welcome.
I like Petaway just as much as Rory does, and I think this is about time Nebraska gets their first ever tournament win. This is their first NCAA tournament actually since '98, so it's been a long time, and I think Nebraska has played really well this season against some of the top teams that they have played, and I see them beating a Baylor team who doesn't have one really good scorer. I know Corey Jefferson's really athletic, and they have some three-point shooters with Heslip, but I just think Isaiah Austin needs to be a little more assertive in the post. I don't see him making anybody on Nebraska fearful. They don't have too much size, but Austin's more of like a jump shooter. He doesn't really have that muscle yet. So I think that Nebraska will also win this game. So next up, Creighton, LA Lafayette. Rory and I both have Creighton.
And then on to the 7-10 matchup, Oregon, BYU.
They played during the regular season, actually, Oregon, BYU, and Oregon beat BYU 100-96 in overtime. So if you like scoring, this is a game to watch.
Yeah, it's a very good game to watch. And I always talk about momentum. I'm a big fan of teams who came in with momentum. And Oregon actually finished up the season 8-1, so that's big. Oregon coming in with a lot of confidence. And I think it all depends on the play of Mike Moser. And I think Mike Moser is going to have a big game against BYU. Mike Moser, he
UNLV transfer.
Yeah,
another transfer.
He's a bit small. He's been on the small side for a forward, but he opens up the court. He's got a good mid-range game, and he's and when he can open up the court, then they can get the ball to Joseph Young, their best player, and a great 3-point shooter, and then that can open up their whole lane.
So Rory has.
I have Oregon advancing. But watch out for Taylor Hawes and BYU. He averages 23 points per game, but he shoots so much. It's like a Monta Ellis. He just chucks it up, but he doesn't...
Whoa, Monta takes offense. He's changed a little and dials off. Why don't we go Nick Young?
Okay, Nick Young. But, and a great example is during the Wichita State game. He went 3 for 15. He did have 17 points, but a lot of possessions that were just kind of quick possessions, shooting within 10 seconds of the shot clock. It's just... Sometimes there are little rush possessions, and he has to look for that extra pass sometimes. So I just think Oregon's a better ball club here.
Yeah, BYU is third in the nation in points per game, 84 a game. Oregon's 11th. I think this is going to be up and down, just like the regular season game. In that game, Hawes scored 32 points, but they still lost. I think Oregon's just going to have to focus on Hawes, especially with Kyle Collinsworth out. I think they'll shape their entire defense around stopping Hawes. They'll obviously have enough to score against a BYU team that lets up a lot of points. And I also see Oregon moving on and winning this game with Dana Altman at the helm.
Yeah, and then the next game, believe it or not, Corey and I both have Wisconsin advancing.
Beating American, who was actually probably the best team in Washington except for GW because Georgetown had more academic suspensions than even Notre Dame. Everett Golston is laughing. That's how bad it was. So our first round rundown is as follows. I have Arizona, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, San Diego State, Nebraska, Creighton, Oregon, Wisconsin.
I have Arizona, Oklahoma State, North Dakota State, San Diego State, Nebraska, Creighton, and Oregon, Wisconsin. And this is where Corey and I are going to start to differ in the next round.
So I have at the top Arizona, Oklahoma State. I have Oklahoma State actually beating Arizona. The reason is I think that Arizona misses a lot without Brandon Ashley. He stretched the floor so well for them. I know that they still have size with Tarczewski and also Gordon. I just think that if LeBron Nash can score inside, that will open up the lane for Brown and Smart. And the key to this game is Phil Forte. Yeah. In games where he shoots 50% from three, the Cowboys are 11-5. And he's a 38% shooter. 45% three-point shooter, excuse me. He's so good from behind the arc that I just think that he can space the floor and open it up for Smart and Markel Brown to drive. Here's the only thing that concerns me about my pick. Oklahoma State lost Michael Cobbins at the beginning of the season. He averaged 6 rebounds per game last year. Oklahoma State is 207th in defensive rebounding percentage, and Arizona does have some size with Tarczewski and Gordon. And they're third in total rebounding percentage or rebounding rate. So I think that it does a little bit concern me that Arizona could dominate the boards, and no matter how well Smart and Brown play, they'll just have too many offensive rebounds. But I think that Oklahoma State's got a team rebound, gain up on Tarczewski and Gordon, and I think that they'll pull ahead in this game. I like Marcus Smart to lead Oklahoma State past Arizona in a 1-9 upset.
I disagree with you 100%. Arizona is just too strong of a team for Oklahoma State. And Corey, Oklahoma State is about in the top 100s for defense. points per game allowed. And Arizona has a surprisingly good D. They're fourth in points allowed. I didn't even know that because, I mean, when you think of Arizona, you think, wow, they're just good. They have a lot of players who can score. Because at the better teams, you think, wow, they're good offenses. But Arizona has a very good defense. They're top 30 in offensive rebounding and defensive rebound. I think they just have too much height for Oklahoma State. I think the key, like you said, is Forte, but I think even more Nash. Nash is going to have to really be a presence in the post, and he's really just going to have to try to hold his ground with Tarzinski and with Gordon. I just think Arizona is just too much.
All right, so next matchup, Rory has North Dakota State, San Diego State. Rory?
I have this a quick one. I think North Dakota State, a great win in the first round or the second round, whichever one you count it as. But I think Xavier Thames and San Diego State is just too strong a ball club defensively and offensively for North Dakota State. I have San Diego State advancing.
In my game, I have Oklahoma against San Diego State. I know San Diego State can struggle some offensively, especially if Thames isn't playing well. They don't shoot the three ball too well, just 34%. But the thing is, defensively, they're just so strong. Second in points allowed in the nation, 56.6 per game. Third in defensive efficiency. I think that San Diego State's going to hold Oklahoma's fast-paced offense down, move on to play Oklahoma State in my bracket.
And then next, I have Nebraska Creighton. And again, I think this is a pretty easy game to pick for me, at least. I think Creighton and Doug McDermott moves on to the Sweet 16 pretty handedly.
Yeah, my matchup, I also have Creighton against Nebraska. I think it's going to be difficult for Nebraska to guard Creighton, especially McDermott. McDermott's just so good from the three. He can do everything on the floor. Inside, outside, I think they'll have trouble with him. He shoots 53% from the field, 45% from three, makes almost 3 threes per game. He's so good. I love McDermott. And I always think that individual players can really host a team to a title.
Yeah.
And I think that McDermott has enough talent to do that with Creighton. Creighton moves on.
That's what's so interesting about a lot of these teams in this in the West region, because a lot of the teams have these marquee scores.
Yeah.
So you're going to see great one-on-one battles.
Smart, Johnson, McDermott.
So that's all a lot of things to watch in the region. But
Oregon, Wisconsin, we will have in our next.
I just have Wisconsin winning. I just think these round 32 matchups are very easy for me, at least. I don't think there's many good games in this part of the bracket.
I likewise have Wisconsin. I'm a little concerned because I think Oregon can score a good amount, and I think that their athleticism could cause Wisconsin a little bit of trouble. But I think that Kaminsky and Sam Decker, they can both step out and shoot the three as big men, could cause Oregon some problems. I'm not sure if they have the big guys who can stay with them because they both shoot 38% or better from three. I think that Wisconsin wins this game, but I think it could be a close game because the Ducks are a good team.
Yeah, they're quick too, which could give Wisconsin some troubles. Wisconsin's not the most athletic of teams, and they're both kind of very average teams when you look at stat-wise, offensive and defense. No one of these teams do anything that great, so I think you could easily see an upset, but I just think Wisconsin, with Bo Ryan coaching, I just don't see a loss for them happening in the round of 32.
All right, so now we begin with the Sweet 16.
I have Arizona versus San Diego State and Creighton versus Wisconsin.
And I have, in my bracket, Oklahoma State against San Diego State and Creighton against Wisconsin.
Okay, let's start with the first. So I have Arizona versus San Diego State, and I think this is where Xavier Thames will have a chance to shine, but Arizona, again, is just too much. But I want to point out...
Twister there. I thought you were going to San Diego State.
They
played in the regular season as well, a game that Arizona won close.
Yeah. Very close, but I think they do have a chance because Xavier Thames has gone big in the big games. 16 against Kansas in their win against Kansas, 26 in their win against Creighton, and 23 in their win against New Mexico. So I think he's gonna shine. He's a great player, and you can't stop him completely. But I think Arizona's total defense, I think they're just gonna shut down the rest of San Diego State, along with Arizona's size. I just think it's going to be an easy matchup for Arizona, and an easy win, and they'll be advancing to the Elite Eight.
All right. In my bracket, I have Oklahoma State against San Diego State. Once again, I have Oklahoma State advancing on past San Diego State. I think this could be a really good game just because San Diego State is so good defensively, but I just think that I'm really buying Marcus Smart in this tournament. If he lets me down, I'm going to be really upset with him. Not as upset as Jeff Orr was when he got pushed, which was really so many different things in that incident. But ever since that, after that period, he's come back even better. There's some conspiracy theorists who think that it was all set up to get the Cowboys to play better.
The Texas Tech fan went and got season tickets for about 12 years just to do this.
These people also believe that we didn't. Neil Armstrong didn't land on the moon, but that's besides the point. So I like
Transformers on the moon. Actually,
exactly. Conspiracy theories are everywhere. Look them up online. There's some great ones on Reddit. So
Reddit,
yeah, this is going downhill.
Okay, let's go to our other Elite Eight, Sweet 16 matchup. I think we both have Creighton versus Wisconsin.
Yeah,
but we differ on the result. I have Creighton. Corey has Wisconsin. I'll start. I think Wisconsin just does not have a marquee scorer, and I think. And people say, hey, Creighton needs another scorer. You can't just do it with McDermott. But McDermott has really carried their team. He scored 40 points against Villanova in their second win. No one else had about the second high score for besides McDermott had 11 points. I think that was Raggy. I'm not so sure about that. But Raggy has a chance to go off. In the first game against Villanova, he had 27 points. And Menegot had 19. So players around Creighton do help McDermott. But McDermott can't help a team. We've seen it before with Stephon Curry. We've seen it before with Jimmer Fredette. One player can carry a team. And that's why I think Doug McDermott is good enough.
I love McDermott, but I think this is where their tournament run ends. I think that Bo Ryan makes his second Elite Eight and his first since 2005, a team that had Greg Stiesma. But I just think that Wisconsin plays really well against the three ball, and they allow just 14 points from three, which is 25th in the nation. And Creighton relies so heavily on that three. They shoot 42.2% from three, which is the best in the nation. And I know they have a really good offensive efficiency with McDermott and everything. I just think that Wisconsin's going to slow them down, take them off the three-point line, and I think that Wisconsin wins a close game in that one. And I have Oklahoma State, Wisconsin in my West Region final. Rory?
I have Arizona and Creighton, but one thing too, Corey, Wisconsin has not played well as of late. They lost to Nebraska and Michigan State to end their regular season schedule, so I'm a little scared about that. Plus, I don't think Kaminsky can give them enough production to beat a high-scoring team like Creighton. But here, we'll move on.
So, Rory, your West final?
I have the Creighton Blue Jays advancing to the Final Four, the 3-seed Creighton, beating Arizona. I think this is where I just don't see Nick Johnson going off against Creighton. I think it's too many games. You can't rely on Nick Johnson that much, but they have to because without Ashley out, there's not enough. There's not really a player who can stretch the floor. Gordon does not have a good shot. Neither with Tarzinski. They're both good slashers, but I think you can't rely on Nick Johnson that much. He's the X factor, and he needs 15 or 20 points or so if they're going to win that game. I just don't see that happening. I see Doug McDermott and Creighton advancing to my Final Four.
That would be Creighton's deepest run since 1941 when they made the NCAA first round and there were just 8 teams. So just showing how historic that would be. In my West Regional Final, I have Wisconsin playing against Oklahoma State, and I have Wisconsin making their first Final Four under Bo Ryan. I just think that this is where Oklahoma State's run finally ends. Wisconsin is just a little too big, I think, for Oklahoma State, and they have enough defensive ability to be able to stop Smart with guys like Ben Bruss, and they're a really good team defense. And I think that Wisconsin represents the Big Ten, and they are my second Big Ten team from 3 brackets. I had Michigan State from the East. I also think Wisconsin comes out from the West. Good team defensively. I think that this is finally the year where Wisconsin can shine and make that Final Four. So, West Region, Rory has
Creighton,
and my West Regional winner is Wisconsin.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll be giving our Midwest region analysis very soon. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.